Do all members of parliament conform to the Parliamentary Code of Conduct? How democratic is the South African parliament? Is there no other way to voice objection rather than booing and heckling of other members? Who is authorized to determine the dress code in parliament? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. A significant milestone marking the 1994 ushering of a new dispensation in South Africa was the adoption of a democratic parliament. The apartheid-era tricameral parliament made way for an all-inclusive institution where members from different political affiliations and color line became accepted. However, the code of conduct as well as what to wear and not to wear have come into the spotlight. But who is mandated to ensure that parliamentarians conduct themselves in a professional manner? My guest today, Mmusi Maimane, Democratic Alliance parliamentary leader. Mmusi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my great privilege to be here.
Just brief us, what is the state of affairs as far as that process of the committee having to sit to determine the dress code and all that is concerned?
Look, Parliament, like any other institution, has obviously all its members. Parliament, in terms of its regulation, belongs to its members. It doesn't belong to the Deputy President or the Executive. It doesn't belong to the Speaker of the National Assembly. It belongs to all the members. And what the members then do is they construct committees that deal with this issue. And as you know, there's been a rules committee that's been sitting to talk about the rules. Yeah. And so the state of play at the moment is that I think they're sitting even now as we speak, and they certainly will be considering what the rules they're going to put forward so that the institution must work. Ultimately, the central issue is that Parliament serves the people of this country, and a broken Parliament means South Africa doesn't work. You know?
So what are you vying for as the DA? You want suits and ties and no red overalls and makarapa?
Look, I'm of the view that South Africans, as an MP, I stand here as a representative of the people of this country. The people of this country elect me. They elect me to represent their issues. They don't elect me to decide that Parliament is a fashion show. They don't elect me to decide. And if they so decided to elect me so that I can wear an overall, then I must serve that constituency. So this issue about dress code is really null and void. It's irrelevant in this issue. Yeah, the most central thing is that what do the people who elect you want? And if they decide that you are most effective getting dressed up in a particular way, then they must proceed. I'm of the view that Parliament is a professional institution. I would instruct our MPs. I don't think it should be something written in rules per se. But my MPs will certainly know that they dress in what I would deem to be professional, which I think is a body that says you must look formal, you must, because it's a place of work. The work of Parliament isn't just for the theatre thereof. I think that's been a mistake. It's to pass legislation, laws.
But Mmusi, who determines formality? Who says when you're dressed in a suit of the nature that you like and a tie?
It's the people who vote for me. They must decide. They must be able to say, look, I prefer that my leader in Parliament arrives in this kind of formality because that speaks to me. That speaks to what I'd like for South Africa to become. Because ultimately, I act as a representative of the people. And so without debate, without trying to get into all of this, I think we're protected in terms of expression. But ultimately, we represent the people who elect us. And so the 4 million South Africans who said the DA must stand in Parliament must then be able to say, I'm comfortable with you being dressed that way. And if they are not, they'll express it at the ballot box.
Do you mind sitting next to somebody who's wearing a red work suit?
It's irrelevant. Let the people who vote for people who want to wear overalls vote for them.
Okay.
The question that will be determined in the long-term trajectory of this issue is whether or not that's sustainable, whether or not that allows the climate to work. And it's not just in the dress code, it's what they say and how they represent the people of this country. Remember, South Africa is part of a global climate. We're not just, the audience of Parliament isn't just domestic, it's also international. So it's up to what other people globally look and think and when they see Parliament in its operation.
Okay. Are you concerned about what is termed the Parliament decorum?
I'm not, because I think that issue is subservient to the fact that Parliament has been hijacked, if I can use that word, by the ANC and Luthuli House. And that's a bigger concern. The biggest concern that this Parliament faces is that there was a speaker was deployed there who then stood up and does not apply the rules fairly and equitably, as the Deputy President of the ANC said. I'm also concerned about the fact that in the midst of that when you're trying to pass very important issues such as the Nkandla Ad Hoc Committee report, it became crystal clear that she was sent there to protect President Zuma. In fact, she said herself in the interview, in the election, she said, we can't discuss this issue of Nkandla, we can't talk about a man's kraal, it's sacred ground. So she's not going to arrive in Parliament and suddenly think there must be a debate and fair consensus being given on this issue. So she went to Parliament with that absolute mandate. That is my challenge. So what happens is that I don't wake up in the morning and think to myself, I must go to Parliament to break down decorum, I must go to Parliament to break the rules. I, in fact, want to go to Parliament to build the institution, to strengthen it. Coupled with that, it's about making sure that the Speaker applies the rules fairly.
But you sometimes actually break the rules yourself. I mean, when they say you're not recognized, you refuse to sit down.
But that was on a principle of the fact that a rule was being broken, a very fundamental rule. If I take you back to that particular day, you will recall that the Speaker of the National Assembly stood up and said, I have resolved that due to unforeseen circumstances that motions must now be cut to 45 minutes. What gives her the mandate to do that? That undermines a programming committee. You can't simply chop and change rules as you feel like it. So there's a principle there that's it. But let me give you the next assurance. Had she stood up on that day and said, Honorable Maimane, in this instance, I think you are wrong on the basis of rule X, Y, and Z. I think you are wrong. My ruling here is that you need to exit the chamber. I'll be the first one to lead by example and say we stand up for the principle of the rule of law. I might not even agree with it, but I will uphold the institution because the institution must stand long before Mmusi Maimane is there or whether he's not going to be there.
So you would still maintain that she must what? Resign or recuse herself?
No, I've asked, we have no confidence in Speaker Baleka Mbete. We lost that vote, so we accept the process. Okay. Now what needs to happen is that she must apply the rules fairly. It's what the Deputy President of the ANC, her own colleague, made clear to say she's not applying the rules fairly, that none of the presiding officers are doing that. He did. When we had a meeting with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, he stood up and he said, one of the things to make Parliament work is that the rules must be applied fairly and equitably. By implication, it says that it was not being done by the presiding officers. And therefore, we must be able to get back to that point, strengthen it, because the rule of law doesn't just derive the principle that guides the Speaker, but it guides society. And if I want to stand up and say I champion the Constitution, then I must equally be willing to say I champion the rule of law and the rules that make society function.
Okay. I want us to take a break. And by the way, I must just remind our viewers that we had in fact invited the ANC and the EFF, but unfortunately they couldn't make it for reasons that I guess they would be best suited to articulate. This is Question Time. Please don't go away. We'll return shortly.
Art is a personal expression that evokes a flame from within.
Street art, it's a vast concept.
Dancing is one of the main art forms on the streets of Africa. Regardless of how it is done, the streets remain expressive. A passionate artist in the central business district of Johannesburg.
Yeah, I've been doing this it's been 7 years or 8 years now.
Brains lost control on what to do then. Words dispute in the mouth of a woman.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Musi Maimane. He's the DA parliamentary leader now. Musi, welcome back. If you were to sum up the current state of parliament in South Africa, what would you say?
I'd say for the first time, I think the ANC is up against a very tough opposition. We're upping our game. We're very clear about the fact that we've got a lot of work to do. We want to put South Africa first. And I think the ANC thought that they'd have it easy. They thought that they could just keep, in the same way as they're doing to state institutions, collapsing SARS, collapsing the NPA, collapsing all of that. We wanted to stand up and say, you're not going to collapse Parliament. We will put as much of a stance as we can. And I think they didn't see that coming. And now second to that, further to the issue, is the fact that I think there is a spat between obviously the ANC and the EFF that is from their own home. So it's like they've taken a fight that must be left at home now to a public spectacle, and I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
But that furthermore, I think there have been some very difficult issues. Nobody can deny the fact that corruption within Nkandla is a serious issue. Nobody can deny the fact that when we forced the debate on energy, that it must have been debated. That nobody can deny the fact that when we ask a motion of no confidence in the Speaker, those are tense issues because we want a parliament that's functional.
Okay. Now, you are accusing the ANC of collapsing SARS and NPA and all that. Why?
President Zuma will stand up even at the State of the Nation address and say they're serious about fighting corruption. But what is clear is that all of those institutions, all of them now, are without a head. The SIU has just lost a head. The National Prosecuting Authority, Mxolisi Mnqasana, has been asked now for terms of reference we've asked for terms of reference as to why he should be investigated. We still haven't got those. So there's no logic as to why now he must be investigated because there's no terms of references. If you look at SARS, now post a report that you can see that SARS is now been put in places where there's been rogue elements, there's been deterioration at SARS. These are key institutions. The Hawks is another critical one that is now in crisis as Dramat has also been suspended. It tells you the story that says collectively the institutions that are tasked to fight corruption, to keep the rule of law, are being collapsed under the ANC. They haven't happened before. We've had a history of this changing of NPA heads, etc., etc. But now it's become exacerbated as there's a collective sense at which there's a collapse of these critical institutions to fight. And this has all happened under President Zuma.
Okay. Let's look at the NPA, for instance. You are accusing the ANC of collapsing the NPA, and you're saying that Mxolisi Mnqasana is uncertain in his job?
Certainly is. Look.
Okay. Now, why are you so interested, in particular, with Mxolisi Mnqasana's job? And I'll give you other instances. Just give me perhaps a reason why you so...
It's a vital job. When you talk about the rule of law and in fact that the National Director of Public Prosecutions must be able to fulfill the mandate that can prosecute everybody, that nobody must be above the law, it's a vital demonstrative institution. Now, the accusation that the ANC is making is that there was a murder case before. Now, that should have been investigated before he was appointed. It's that the president, I can recall in June last year, in July last year, the president first announced the terms of reference to say there must be a commission of inquiry into Mxolisi Mnqasana. And then he withdrew it. I asked him in Parliament on the 21st of August, do you not believe there's a conflict of interest between you being able to appoint the person who's tasked with the job of investigating you, and what are the terms of reference for the investigation? And the president simply averted the question. Now today we sit with an NPA that in fact whose head, when he further responded, he said they had a meeting and now he needed to proceed. Now today, he's now reinstating a commission of inquiry against him, still without terms of reference.
So you don't want him to do that?
The president simply must operate within the law. He simply can't wake up in the morning and say, well, I've thought about this, I must fire.
So should he not have acted?
If he must act within the law. He must act within the law. And all I'm asking for the president to do is that give us the terms of reference why you believe the candidate that you appointed must now be investigated.
Okay, let me put this to you. Is it not because, as the DA, you have a member of parliament called Honorable Breitenbach, who's facing charges that are supposed to be investigated and prosecuted by the NPA. And her docket lies in the NPA offices. And it is said that Mxolisi Nxasana has not acted. And therefore, as the DA, you are worried that if he leaves office, your member is going to be investigated.
I have no worry at all. Mxolisi Nxasana, if he's got a case, he must investigate.
Do you know that your member has a case?
If they've got a case to answer, they must put her to court. I will support due process on this issue.
All right.
Nobody's above the law, including Advocate Breitenbach herself.
Musi. Do you know that Honorable Breitenbach has a case to answer?
The NPA has not charged her formally. I'm asking that inconsistent. If you want to go back to apartheid, then say, we've got a case against you, but we're not going to charge you and you're guilty. But in the new South Africa, under the rule of law, if you believe you've got a case against somebody, charge them, prosecute them, and prove the evidence. But you can't certainly be running around in the country saying, this person has a case to answer, but you have no commitment to, in fact, investigating them. No member of our party is above the law, and I will prove that because they must be charged.
What is going to happen? If I were to give you a case number of a matter that involves your honorable member, Breitenbach.
Let the public prosecutor prosecute her. That's all I'm saying. You can't just invent these things in the privacy of your home and then say, we've got a case. If you've got a case, prosecute. That's all I'm asking. And I think Advocate Breitenbach would tell you if she was sitting here, if the NPA has a case against her, let them go to court. It's the right process to do. It's how the rule of law works. What they're not willing to do is that they've got a case against President Zuma. Now we have to put a court order to compel them to charge President Zuma, to recharge him. Because we believe the rational methodology the irrational methodology they use to drop the charges simply will not stand up to legal scrutiny. That's why we had to be given the spy tapes. That's why we are asking that President Zuma be charged, so that nobody's above the law.
But now, I'm saying, why then are you not saying that your member must also be charged?
I've just said that. I said if the NPA has a case against Advocate Breitenbach, and I'll spell it out, they must charge her, prosecute her.
Are you willing to assist them?
How will I assist them? I'd have no capacity to be able to do that. I would call on them right here on this show to say, if you have a case, charge the person. And let's follow legal processes. But they know that they are fabricating allegations and therefore they have no case. But if they have one, let them charge.
Why do you believe that what you are saying
because
is
if they
true
did have
and
one,
what other people say is not true?
If they did have one, they should have proceeded a long time ago.
Well, is it not because, like I said, that the case is just, the docket is just sitting around at the NPA
Why
offices?
is it sitting around doing nothing? If you've got a case against somebody that's a serious one, the last thing I would need is to have someone in our caucus or someone in society who someone else has a case against walking around. Charge the person and proceed. That's all I'm asking.
All right.
We have nothing to hide. Nothing to hide.
Okay. You then referred to the Hawks as well. What is your concern there?
Dramat now is facing an illegal suspension. The courts have just found that the process at which of suspending Dramat, we're not sound. Now when Minister Nhleko comes to Parliament to say that, he eventually wants to ask Parliament to suspend them. And I'm going, the courts have found one way. Now you are insisting that the Speaker of the National Assembly make a decision as to suspend somebody. It can't be. What are the reasons for suspension? They don't hold up to scrutiny.
Okay, but are you not worried that the gentleman, Mr. Dramat, is implicated in serious matters?
If there is implications of people on serious matters, produce the evidence.
Well, that's a case on that.
They failed to do that. They failed to do that.
There's a case on that.
And if they do have the case, then don't just use it when Advocate Dramat says, I've got evidence against the president. Come out.
But he never said that. He actually went public to say he's not investigating that matter.
The key issue here, all I'm asking, is that the evidence that was produced, why was the Minister of Police not tabled it at the High Court? Why did he fail to do that? Because he knew that the evidence that he so claims to have would not have stood up in a legal contestation that they were involved with. All I can go with is that in a world of the rule of law, if someone has been found that the process of suspending the person is irrational, all I'm asking is that Dramat must be back at work so that we can proceed with the work of the Hawks.
But do you understand that what you're saying is not true, that he said he was investigating the president?
Well, I accept that, but the rumor has been that continuously, and this is the issue.
But what kind of an organization are you
I'm trying to
which acts
establish
on
is
rumors?
that come to Parliament,
Okay.
table all the cases that he's got before him, give me a rational reason why you've suspended him. But in truth, when you gave me an irrational legal issue, it was challenged in court and it was thrown out.
Okay.
So let the Minister of Police tell us why you want to suspend Dramani.
Hold the thought there. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our discussion. This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
Zoom into Africa. This is Ghana. The president is Mr. John Dramani Mahama. Ghana got independent from the United Kingdom on 6 March in 1957. The population is more than 25 million people. One of Ghana's major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is cedi.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. I guess today is Musi Maimane, is the DA parliamentary leader now. Musi, the state of the nation is on the horizon now. What is your plan? Other people are planning to disrupt? Are you on a countdown as well?
I don't wake up in the morning to disrupt Parliament. I don't. I actually want Parliament that works.
Okay.
And if we want to, I think the state of the nation must go ahead, because look, the collapse of the state of the nation can only benefit one person, President Zuma. Why? Because he walks away without having to account to the people of this country. A State of the Nation address is designed for him to give us responses on issues of unemployment, issues of contact crime, issues of load shedding, issues that South Africans are sitting at home. We can't make it the state of Nkandla. We must make it the state of the nation. And that has many other dynamics to the issue. And so we asked is that a programming committee be convened, that we know whether the president will complete the last session or whether it's a new session, and they must give us dates for the rest of the year. That's all we ask, because question time is a separate matter to the state of the nation.
Okay. And in as far as you're concerned, is the Nkandla matter supposed to hold Parliament at ransom?
Not. I mean, Parliament went and put a whitewash report last year and passed it. What I called the ANC study group that it became, under Luthuli House's leadership, produced a report that then went through, because they used their numbers to vote through a document that said President Zuma got home and was surprised to find out his house was growing. He didn't even ask any question. He was surprised. So we'll live with that. But now the process that must go from henceforth is that now we are waiting for the ruling in the Western Cape High Court that says, you have to give evidence to disprove why you must ignore the public protector. Now, the public protector makes it clear that the president, in consultation with the Minister of Police, must be able to pay back an amount from the upgrades. Yes. And so we are waiting to, once the public protector has finished the appeal of Judge Skeppes, so that we can stand up on a legal basis and be able to say, don't ignore the public protector. And it proves the point I've been making, that once you start to ignore institutions of government that are designed to fight corruption, one of them being the public protector. The president wrote back and said, the public protectors are keen only to an ombudsman. We want to be able to disprove his opinion that the public protector is not an ombudsman. He must stand up, comply with the public protector if the president wants that institution to survive. For if the president ignores the public protector, then no other South African must.
And in as far as this pay back the money chant or thing is concerned, does it resonate with you?
Look, I think it resonates in as far as the taxpayer's money has funded an upgrade to a president's personal, a politician's personal residence. It resonates in the fact that I think there was a lot of wrongdoing there. I think without fail, the president must have known. I think the president, in fact, gave the instructions. And that's my opinion. Okay. And I believe that if really he wants to honor the people of South Africa as the chief custodian of the resources of this country, it's obligatory of him to listen to the public protector and comply with that order. But ultimately, I'm standing up, making the order, knowing that this must apply to anybody.
Okay. And so far, obviously, nobody knows how much he has to pay.
Well, actually, it's a straightforward answer to that. He must sit down in consultation with the Minister of Police and be able to determine a figure. That's what the public protector says, and he must be able to do that. Now, let me remind us, we must decide whether a cattle crawl, which is over R1 million, is that a security feature? If it's not, we now know the liability, he must go for R1 million, coupled with the fire pool or the swimming pool, the amazing fire pool. It must be included, the amphitheater, the tuck shop. If we all as South Africans sit down and say all of those issues are non-security items, the president is obliged to pay back that money.
Okay. Let's look at perhaps your assessment of the current Parliament and, immediately post-94, the Mandela, perhaps Mbeki era. Which one would you have rather wished to be a member of?
I would have wished to be a member of the first Parliament, and I think because under the leadership of President Mandela understood executive accountability. There's a famous court ruling that the president went and appeared before court and in fact lost that. But he said, I'll oblige with what the courts say. He understood the principle that says there's a supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law. President Mandela appeared before Parliament regularly to come and take questions. In fact, under his era, it used to be weekly. Under President Mbeki, he tasked a chief whip to make it quarterly. Under President Zuma, it's becoming annually, because he only came once last year, and I'm hoping that this year he doesn't make it annually, which tells you that the integrity of executive accountability is on the decline rather than on the rise. If President Zuma wants to correct that curse, he needs to appear before Parliament 5 times this year, answer last questions last year, and then comply with the rule that says once a term, the president must come to answer questions. And it's a generous offer to say he must only come quarterly. In other democracies, the president has to account on a regular basis. If we had it our way, I would increase the number of times the president has to come. In the Western Cape Parliament, the premier has to appear at least 10 times a year. I think for South Africa, we need a president who's accountable to the people. The only place is accountable. It's not an Imbizo, it's not a Lekotla, it's not some community. It is in Parliament. He must come and respond. For the representatives of the people sit in Parliament. Okay.
Ever since this program started, I hear you blaming the ANC on a lot of things, and something that comes to mind is the fact that the ANC is the majority in Parliament. Do you sometimes forget that and perhaps wish or rather behave like you're the majority party, as they would say?
I don't at all. I respect majoritarianism, but I also uphold the principle of President Nelson Mandela, who understood that even though you are in the majority, Parliament belongs to all the people, that you must work in consultation with one another to get legislation that works for everybody. But when the ANC's NEC stands up and says, use your majority to crush the opposition, then you are saying that all the people who didn't vote for the ANC and voted for another party must be crushed in that their views must not be expressed. That's wrong.
But you can express them, but they are not necessarily guaranteed, a hearing.
The day we get into the wrong flow of majoritarianism, where in fact you say the minority is irrelevant, is the day we move against the very principle of our Constitution.
2016 elections, what do you promise? How many percent?
Well, I'm hoping to win more metros than just one, so we'll see how we go. I think we're the only party that's been growing, so we'll keep growing.
All the best, Musi.
Much appreciated.
Alrighty, that was Question Time. Our email address, questiontime@sabc.co.za. Twitter handle, @questiontime24. And also follow me on Twitter, @Mpho. That's it from us. Goodbye.